Hi, I'm Jim Pence, and welcome to this week's Joy of Art Art Tip. One of the things that people say about watercolors is that they're very difficult to control. And usually what they mean by that is when they try to paint with watercolors, they end up with just a bunch of big blobs of colors, and they can't really paint anything that looks like anything because it's just very difficult to keep the water and the color going where you want it to. Well, today I'm going to give you a very quick tip on how to learn how to control your watercolors. And there are a lot of variations on this particular approach, but it's a good way to begin to, again, get a feel for keeping the watercolors under control, making them do what you want them to. Now you notice on my paper here I've got a number of circles that I've drawn of all different sizes and shapes, and some of them are multicolored and some of them are just one color. But today we're going to just focus on one color. I've got a piece of watercolor paper here, and you'll notice this side says wet and dry, and this side says wet and wet, and that's because I'm going to show you two different two different approaches for controlling your color. We're going to do wet and dry first. Sometimes this is also called dry brush, and what that means is the paper is dry, but I'm going to be coming into it with color, and I'm going to show you how to control that. And then next week I'll show you how to actually apply the techniques that you're learning today into a little picture that should be kind of fun to paint. But first we want to practice the techniques. Just like anything else, the more you practice something, the better you're going to get at it. And so we're going to do that here. We've got wet and dry. Well, what I'm going to do is first of all go over to my red, and I'm going to just get some color going here. Remember, I'm going to start out with my paper dry. Okay, so I've got a pretty good amount of color here. I'm just going to go around the edge. This is just a simple round brush that I'm using. I'm going to go around the edge just very carefully, just like that, and come down this way a little bit more. Maybe add in a little bit more color. Now, one thing, when you're doing this, you have to work kind of quickly so that the paint doesn't dry too much before you're ready to go on to the next step. Okay, now what I'm going to try to do is give this sphere a little bit of shape, or give this circle a little bit of shape, kind of turn it into a sphere. So I'm going to clean out my brush in clear water, and then I'm just going to go back into this. I've taken most of the excess water out, and I'm going to go right back in on the edge where I stopped, just with clear water, and I'm going to begin to soften that edge a little bit. And I'm going to get a little bit more water, come in here, and go a little further. Okay. Now, you have to be a little bit careful, because when you begin to add in too much extra water, sometimes that water is going to kind of go backwards into the color, and you'll get what watercolorists call a blossom. And what that is, it's a place where the water has literally washed the color kind of away, and it's not a very attractive looking effect, and it's generally something that watercolorists don't want. Sometimes they will use that effect to enhance a painting, but most of the time you want to try to avoid blossoms. So now I've just been painting pretty much with clear water ever since I put the original color in. I'm going to go over and dry my brush out a little bit on my dry baby wipes, and maybe pull a little bit more of that color down in here, not too much. And the idea that I'm working toward is just trying to get a nice light to dark feel. And sometimes I will pick up my paper a little bit, let gravity do some of the work. Not always. All right. And so that is wet and dry. Dry brush technique. Now, what about wet and wet? How would you do that with a wet circle? Well, I'm going to take a little bigger brush this time. I've got a flat. This is a number 12. And I'm going to wet it down with clear water. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to wet my paper down inside the circle. And again, my rule of thumb for how much water to put on is I want, when I look at the paper at kind of an angle and see the light reflecting off of it, I want to see what I call a glisten. Some will say, or we'll call it a satin finish. What I don't want to see are a lot of puddles. I want to see kind of a shiny surface. Okay, now again, you have to work fast. I'm going to use blue this time. I'm going to go into my blue, get some good color here, and now I'm just going to throw it on there. Okay, some good strong color up at one end. Okay, I'm going to clean that brush out a little bit. Okay. Pull it just to kind of smooth a little bit here. Not too much. Okay, I'm going in pretty much just with a dry brush at this point. Pulling the color. Okay, again, I may pick the paper up a little bit, rotate it. And see what I come up with. Might come in back here. Don't want to monkey with it too much. I want to try to soften that out a little bit. But the idea is to just practice doing circles. You might want to eventually move on to squares, other kinds of shapes, but learn to work with the color and the water and see what it does, because once you have a feel for how to create different effects, then you're going to find watercolor isn't nearly as difficult to control as you think it is. Right? This is what I did the other day getting ready for this. I actually took my primaries and mixed complementary colors, and so I did some circles with those. Here I took some red on one side and some yellow on the other and mixed it together. Used a little bit of green. Experiment, play around, have some fun, but learn to work with your colors on a painting that doesn't matter, so that eventually when you want to do a painting that does matter, you'll know how to do it. Well, that's today's quick art tip from The Joy of Art. I'm Jim Pence for See the Light, and we'll look forward to seeing you on next Tuesday's vlog.